Hello, everybody. I wanted to do a video covering a couple topics. I have a couple of new difficulty modes I wanted to introduce, one of which I've been playtesting pretty extensively for a while. And the other topic is going into the exact mechanics of the combat results, because I think this is a topic people want to know more about, and I don't see anyone really do a deep dive into it. So, thankfully, I didn't have to do that deep a dive because somebody else had done this for us. We'll get to that when we get to that. So, everybody knows about Napoleon difficulty mode. Um, I wanted to come up with something else because I'll be honest, I'm fully expecting Night Phoenix to rage quit at some point in Napoleon mode. I think that difficulty mode I don't even think it's possible. We will see. He says he's having a good time, but he hasn't run into the Russians yet. So, I don't know how much of a good time he's going to have when his prestige is being drained ruthlessly. So I was thinking to myself, like, how can I create something that might even be harder, but it's a lot more fun? So the motivation to keep going is there. And I think I have the answer to another difficulty mode. I don't even like the name that much. If you have a better suggestion of a name like Caesar difficulty, Hannibal, uh, Genghis Khan, I'm not sure. I'll go over the mechanics of how it works. It's very similar to Napoleon with some substantial changes. Um, in in certain senses, is kind of mimicking early Napoleonic wars, but the softcore option has very similar rules, but I've highlighted in bold what the changes are. Um, uh, the player, instead of like a double field marshal, you're going to get penalized further on experience growth. You're going to see your experience is 10%, and to make things really radical and wild, we are going to double the experience growth of the AI. So that'll be very interesting. And actually, these two things kind of complement each other because if you damage a much more experienced AI unit, you can get more experience. I mean, we all know that taking out a four-star unit produces more experience than a two-star unit. And this could help late war when growing experience units is getting more difficult. Anyway, I don't necessarily think this is impossible, but it's very challenging and probably not relevant until Streets of Moscow. Okay. What else? Oh, the other on the softcore option, this is extremely important. You should have dice chess mode activated. This is something I've been messing around with for some time because I found Delta 76's current recording of Ultimate Mode fascinating, and you should definitely check it out. Uh, I think Ultimate Mode is probably too easy if you just implement chess dice. I've actually been playtesting it a bit, and I can now understand how Delta 76 is showing trivial decisive victories. He's publishing a video every 2 days. Um, most of his work is probably actually just designing the commentary over the screen. So once I discovered that, this is opening up a whole new Pandora's box. So most people don't like chess mode. I agree with you. I think the reason we don't like it is I think it makes the game too easy, which is why we're making some extra rules to balance that. The reason on this difficulty mode you want dice chess is we're going to get into the hardcore section. You'll see when we get to the hardcore section, you're going to want dice chess. And it also helps control the experience growth more easily. So everything else in the softcore section is exactly the same. Now we get into the hardcore section, and there's a major change. So the first major change is that you can never not provide elite replacements, starting at Danzig. So right after you do Poznan, you have to do elite replacements. Theoretically, any unit. Did I mention that? Uh, oh, I did. I actually, you know what? I forgot to change this. I highly recommend because the prestige situation is so severe that you can make a few changes to the map editor so you have more core units, and so the rule of one is implemented. I thought I had a rule in here. You can sell units given to you. Did I not put that in here? I feel like uh, I forget to put that in here. Yeah, oh, it's right here. I'll bold this. This is kind of under the hero clause. You have to accept your first heroes. This is important. Oh yeah, this should be bolded as well. I don't like what Knight Phoenix was doing. He did this just a couple times. I know how elite players think about how to get around the hero issue, and I don't want you to be able to do that. So you can't, if you buy a unit, you can't sell it under any circumstances. However, you can sell the initial units given to you. So there, the Poznan map has some initial units given to you. If you don't like any of them, you want to have a totally different core, it's fine to sell those. Yeah. So, that's one way to get around, like, if you took too much damage from Poznan, you could sell those units and buy something else. But with chest dice implemented, you're going to discover that the damage that you take is fairly limited, so you're not that worried about it. So yeah, this is a really big deal. I have no exceptions. I'll put double exclam there. Why do I have this rule? This is a rule to specifically deter elite players from using all of those abusive, exploitive traits that we've gotten so good at of stacking prestige. I am going to make sure that you are bled dry. Now, surprisingly, I actually think you're going to come out with a little bit more prestige, especially if you do this. If you don't have to, you should have a fighter bomber. You should have a Panzer II, have a Panzer 1A, Panzer 1B. Uh, you know, we should have a 15 centimeter gun, right? Maybe you have enough prestige to just buy the 10 centimeter gun. Yeah. So you're actually going to gain a lot of prestige right at the beginning because you don't have to buy those units, and I think that's fair. I don't know why they don't just give us those units as core units anyway. It's not like the fighter bomber is a super overpowered weapon or the Panzer II is a super overpowered weapon. Anyway, I highly recommend that you do that so that you're not like bankrupt immediately. A lot of these rules are for balance purposes, frankly. So yeah, so you're also here's the other cool thing: these rules synergize. So because the experience growth is so terrible, you want to use elite replacements. It doesn't matter that, oh, I went from 2 to 4 experience and that's going to cost me 30 prestige or something. You don't care because you can't afford regular replacements. Like, this is like a rule that you're going to want to do. You're not going to complain about it. You're going to appreciate the fact that you can do this. When you combine it with the chess mode, extreme swings in damage just don't happen. I mean, having play tested this even against rugged defense, it's all. I'm going to get into that, by the way. I'm sure you're very interested in how that works. We will get into that. But the damage output, even from a rugged defense, is very controlled and predictable, or mostly predictable. So, like, when you watch people play and they're like, "Well, I just lost 6 damage from this crazy rugged defense," that's simply not going to happen in the vast majority of cases with chess mode activated. So you have some sense of how much money or how much prestige you're going to have to spend after a scenario. And it's no longer wild ass guesses. Uh, you are going to get a quick feel for what it is costing you to do a scenario. You can absolutely do Danzig South taking very minimal damage, mostly because of the chess difficulty setting. Okay. Uh, okay. I have another rule. I think that there should be a little bit more say in how the players conduct themselves during the campaign. The other rule, and this is where things get a little fun initially, you pick a unit class for 1939, and then if you can over strengthen that unit class, you must do so if you deploy it. So, let's say you get some level bombers and you get them that 1 star, but you discover, I don't really want to spend the prestige on that. Well, you don't have to deploy them. You can delay the inevitable of giving it that unit overstrength. So one of the interesting things about this is another prestige drain. I'm forcing the player to not sit on prestige. You will spend prestige by force during the campaign, specifically to make sure that you can't stack it. There's way too many shenanigans that I'm a part of the group that people come up with where we're stacking prestige so we can unload it on key scenarios. So there's this interesting dynamic that happens with this because you're going to have stronger core than Napoleon mode. You're going to have a much stronger core. Um, so it's going to be slow though. Like your core, you probably don't have the prestige to over strengthen everything. So one of the interesting things is notice that I didn't restrict you to only doing that unit class. What I'm merely saying is whatever unit class that you pick, you have to overstrength. If you want to overstrength other unit classes, you can. Now, the interesting thing about this is you should be very careful about this because you will blow through your prestige. And keep in mind, you have to use elite replacements. So the priority is elite replacements and then overstrengthen your unit class. What you're probably going to discover, especially since you don't have hero units anymore, is you simply don't have the prestige to do what you want to do. So there is a balance here. Maybe you pick like I go over this in this section somewhere down here, but I would be very careful about which unit class I would pick because certain units take more damage than others. Wink, wink. Um, and then in 1940, I'm now saying you have to pick two more unit classes, and those have to have max overstrength applied. And then in 1941, you pick three unit classes out of the remaining six, and then by 1942, you have to spend all the prestige. Like you have to provide max overstrength, and you will have to always be doing elite replacements. This applies to uh, all units. Yeah, all units. Okay. One of the great things about this is you're going to get more kills and more experience faster, which helps combat the tanking experience growth. Your units are going to be stronger. And actually, every single start you get, even on level bombers, which are the fastest growing units in the game, it actually means something when it happens because it takes so long. The other thing is because the experience growth is so slow, it takes a long time, before you get to expensive overstring. So this is like you're going to definitely accumulate prestige, but you know that you're going to have to spend it by force. And it's going to be interesting. Like, I would love to see someone try this, but I think that it's going to be fun, but like stressful in an accounting sense because there's a lot of rules here. We have the rule of one in effect. AI is much stronger. That's going to start to become a serious problem at Streets of Moscow. I think tactics would change. I wouldn't be shocked if we see new tactics invented because now you have very experienced AI units. With dice chess is going to help mitigate some of this. Like, of course, they're very strong units, but there is a cap on how much damage they can do. Um, and you now know, oh man, how do I engage in combat with these strong units, knowing that I have to over strengthen them and elite replace them. And with the rule of one in effect, you can't just field tigers. So what I like about this is uh I think the way you will play is extremely different. I think when you get, probably by the time you get to 1942, uh I think infantry become even more important because, at least with infantry, they're cheaper than tanks. In the vast majority of cases, they're going to be cheaper than tanks. So you have to probably get more creative in combat because you're not necessarily wanting a Panzer III engaging in a bunch of crazy combat. And by 1943, it gets even crazier. I mean, maybe you go very heavy on the air just out of desperation to avoid all these damaged units. Uh, uh, yeah, so that's what I would recommend. And then my thoughts on the progression of unit classes is level bombers for 39, anti-aircraft and artillery for 40. Notice that I'm going for suppression. Um, just because we all know from practical experience, you need to suppress units and de-entrench them. AA is picked for 40 because it's very difficult to get AA to 1 star. So by the time they get to 1 star, you'll actually have surplus prestige to overstrengthen them, and they're less likely to take damage compared to other units. And then in 1941, I'd recommend the Scout, the Tactical Bombers, and the Anti-Tank. Mostly because Scout and Anti-Tank at this point in the war is less frequent, and tactical bombers are less likely to take damage. And then in 42, your fighters and tanks, and what am I missing? Uh, am I crazy? What am I missing here? One, two, three. I'm having like a brain fart. Uh, Anti-tank scout, tactical bomber. So it'd be fighter, tank. Anyway, all of the classes will be activated, and that'll be interesting to see in 42 because, well, a lot of these units that you delayed overstrengthening are going to be damaged. So prestige management becomes super interesting. It actually becomes like a math problem, and especially because dice chess is in there. So why did I put that in there? It forces the player to spend prestige. You hit soft cap earlier, so no more cheesing the soft cap. Uh, and you have an incentive to invest in your core because the experience growth is so low. So one of the interesting things I will mention, when Napoleon took over his first army in Italy, they were starving. Many of them didn't have weapons. Many of them didn't have shoes. So they were pretty pathetic. And in his first Italian campaign, he had 25 battles. And these units grew over those 25 battles to be highly experienced. But it was very slow going. Okay. And also, he was fighting significantly more experienced troops. His generals were better as a rule, but he was fighting more experienced generals up until Archduke Charles. So this feels very appropriate. Dice chess is more of a balance thing, and yeah, and this thing here, Napoleon had the units that he had the troops that he had, and that was it. Like, it is a constant thing between him and the directory. Give me more men. You're going to get 3,000 men. And, meanwhile, the opponent would get like 20,000 men. It really caused serious problems for the Italian campaign. It's miraculous that he managed to get, I think, 23 victories and 2 losses over a year. Think about that. He fought in 25 battles in a year. That's like 2 battles a month. It's kind of insane. And he had a 92% success rate. Okay. What else? This is just a balance thing. And this idea is to capture Napoleon's troops became more experienced. From 1796 all the way through like 1806, 1807, they were faster than the enemy. They were smarter than the enemy due to the training that the French were doing. And we're catching the momentum of the early Napoleonic Wars. He had the Blitzkrieg system down. You know, the Germans did not invent Blitzkrieg. They borrowed this idea from Napoleon. Even though that word, I don't think that existed in French at the time. Uh, so yeah, I think this is definitely capturing the early Napoleonic Wars. I mean, it was just like Napoleon was just getting stronger and stronger with all of these battles. He had a couple of losses in there. Uh, but for the most part, he was just crushing it. And that's kind of what I hope it would feel like as you keep playing the campaign years. Your initiative bonus, the overstrength bonus is going to be overwhelming. So now, what I wanted to talk about, uh, did I mention ultimate mode? Oh, yeah. Another difficulty mode is ultimate mode chess dice. I think that there are multiple people who could do a live play of that. I was experimenting with it, and like Posen is not hard. Danzig South is not hard. On the other hand, those scenarios are extremely difficult on regular dice chess. I think they're extremely difficult. But you implement dice chess, and it's very abusive. I'll just come out there and say, uh, it's very abusive, and there's all kinds of nasty things you can do to the AI because it's just not that risky. I'll just come out. I think you can do Danzig taking like 1 or 2 points of damage. I'm being honest with you. Like your elite replacement cost would be minimal. Uh, so that's definitely possible. So what I was thinking, I think most people would just be like, okay, it's way too easy. Somehow, ultimate mode has been made trivial. I would recommend the rule of one with dice chess. And if you do that, I think that difficulty level will be pretty easy at the beginning, but it will be a serious problem later, and you're not going to be steamrolling. That as a live play is probably possible. For for some of those elite players out there, we don't have a live play. I've shown a couple of battles as live plays, on ultimate mode, but we don't have a campaign of it. I think chess rule of one ultimate is pushing the edge. I think that would be the edge of what we can do with ultimate. Now, I found a very interesting thread. We're going to read through this. This is going to be a long video, guys, because there's just so much juicy stuff in this thread. It's about the combat equation. So we're going to read through this. And it's going to answer some questions. If you watch Night Phoenix, he's constantly complaining about combat results. Uh, we're going to go through this. I've noticed some things too that makes me go like, why did that happen? Well, it all starts to make sense when you get into the nitty gritty. I don't know. I don't remember anyone talking about this thread before. I think Soren would be very interested in this because maybe there's some things he didn't know that we're going to discover. So somebody asked, is there a good post that clearly explains the combat equation in full detail? I've done some searches and couldn't find a comprehensive explanation. Okay, what are you looking for? Some combat results are completely or partially hidden. So rate of fire, trait bonuses, other factors are external, like the weather and terrain caps. I'm trying to find I'm trying to mod some unit stats, so I've compiled a fair amount of data to better understand what is happening. If you want to know how the hit miss percentages are determined, these are hard coded. This is very important. These are hard coded and are a result of absolute difference between the total attack and defense values. There are two sets, one for direct attacks and one for indirect. So primarily level bombers and artillery. So if you have a hard attack of 20 and a ground defense of 18, combat would have the same miss suppress kill chance as soft attack 9, ground defense 10. Yes, we'll get into the we're going to see a table of this down this thread. I would like to have a complete explanation of everything that is going on. Don't we all? I mean, how many times have I seen a comment thread under a video like, what is happening with the combat results? So I could build a computer model to make thorough combat prediction. See the probability distribution curve of possible damage outcomes, probability of close defense. I think he's talking about a CDF and a PDF distribution function. That is interesting, or get an expected value, which is what I mean. That's already calculated for us by the engine. Um, I'd have to know about the basic combat mechanics, how all of this stuff works, as well as terrain and weather. What inspired me to do this previous discussion about the 109K versus the 190. I strongly suspect that the higher damage output of the 190 makes it more effective on the Eastern Front, particularly where the enemy fighters are too weak to do much damage, even though it has lower initiative. I bet there's a lot of scenarios where two 190s can kill a Stormovic or other such bomber where it would take 3 hits from a 109, meaning you need a lot less of the former. However, without a proper computer model, this is just a hunch. Oh, he must be talking about the BF. Okay. I'll try to collect some info and provide it in some kind of strategy guide. I'm not sure if chances are calculated, but the two hit tables I have will be helpful. I've already used them to mod unit stats to calculate the average number of kills they would inflict. Okay, so the combat equation, we're getting into the juicy stuff. The basics, at the bottom of the combat log, there are all these important numbers that show the chance of inflicting a miss, which is in gray, a point of suppression, which is in blue, or a kill, which is in red. These are based on the ratio between the effective attack and effective defense. This is super important. You're ever wondering how you took so much damage because of a rugged defense? This is how. These effective attack defense values are simply the result of the game applying all relevant modifiers to the basic stats of the units. Note that these chances are independent. This is extremely important. I wish I could highlight this in bold. Are independent of initiative, strength, and rate of fire. So, I think a lot of times people overstrengthen a highly experienced unit, and they're like, why? How is it possible that this overstrengthened tiger got wrecked attacking an infantry in open space? And it has a lot to do with this effective attack defense, and rugged defense will come in as well. But, a lot of things that you think are super important in terms of determining the kill chance are simply not important. This is hard coded. These values influence only when and how many times you can try to make a dice roll with those chances. Having a very high kill chance per attack still means little if the strength or initiative are too low to make effective use of a high kill chance. I was just having a conversation with Delta 76 after one of his videos, and he was talking about how he doesn't think attack plus 3 and defense plus 3 are necessarily as useful as everybody thinks they are. Um, and actually, looking into some of the stats we'll get into, I actually think the best heroes you can get is initiative and movement. Uh, um, it seems like, and there's a reason why they capped initiative heroes to like +1 and not. It used to be you can get like +3, because initiative is broken. If you allow heroes to be more than that, it would also explain why I find heroes get initiative heroes to be so deadly. It's like an initiative hero for combat purposes is kind of insane. Uh, Okay. Here is a table. So the A minus D is what is the difference between attack and defense? And then you get your percentages: miss, suppress, kill. If the difference is like greater than 14, you're capped at an 81% kill chance. So what's interesting about that, uh, what if the attack is negative? This is so interesting. You know how on Sevastopol, this is why I bring this up. I was watching Sevastopol Assault from Delta. I think he mentioned they had 40 ground defense. So let's say, I don't know, like you have a Panzer IV and it's got like 14 heart attack and it's got 3 stars of experience. So you get, I think, +1 heart attack, right? So maybe you have like 17 heart attack, but you're attacking something with 40 ground defense. So the difference is -23. What you'll see here is that this is why he could damage the forts, because uh when you're up to -30 between the difference between attack and defense, you have a 5% kill chance. And then what that translates to in chess dice is it rounds up to, if you have a 10 strength unit, effectively that means you're going to round up to doing 1 damage. I have play tested this myself quite a bit. Fighters is a classic example. When you attack infantry in a city, you have a 5% chance. I think like infantry have like 17 air defense, and then your ground attack of a fighter, I don't know. It's probably like 10 or something, maybe lower than that. And so you're looking at maybe the difference is like -10 or something. So you can see that like it's somewhere in here. You're expected to do 1 damage with a 10 strength fighter. And even if you give it some overstrength, the reality is you probably have to get up to like 4 overstrength or something to pump this up enough to do 2 damage. It's very difficult to get a fighter to do 2 damage against infantry in a city. Okay, so that's why if you watch a Sevastopol video, he's able to guarantee like one damage. I don't even think you have to over strengthen the tanks because this attack minus defense value is independent of initiative and strength, which is fascinating. You just have to have enough shots. I think you have to have 10 shots available that can fire, so that you get that one damage point. This is extremely important. I think, for instance, Soren would be very interested in this. Like, I kind of want him to pay more attention to combat results because, the way his brain works, he can mathematically like optimize things maybe a bit easier instead of relying on guesswork. So you could see that it takes an extreme difference. Like sometimes how the combat prediction is like you do zero damage. One of the things I noticed was my fighter would get chip damage. It would take 1 point of damage. And then if I try to attack infantry in cities, I can't actually damage them. Or maybe it's my fighter bomber. My fighter bomber gets 1 point of damage, and that is enough to prevent the fighter bomber from damaging a unit. I think it has to do with the fact that the difference is maybe it's in this range, right? The difference between attack minus defense, but 5% of 9 shots doesn't round up to one damage compared to 5% of 10 shots. So 5% of 10 shots is 0.5. And the way combat results work is it rounds up. But 5% of 9 is so that's like a tenth lower. That would be 0.45. So you're expected to damage a unit 0.45. 0.45 does not round up to 1, it rounds down to 0. So this is where so this is why I love that difficulty setting I mentioned before. We'll call it Young Napoleon for now. If anybody has a better name, let me know in the comments. Anyway, I found playing on that difficulty setting fascinating, because you think about maps differently. You think about them very differently. There's times when you don't care about chip damage, and then there's times you really care about chip damage. Uh, and I didn't know about this table before I was playtesting, and now so much stuff makes sense. There are subtle differences in the attack minus defense value, and there's this multiplier effect. Uh, so actually having overstrength. So it's interesting if you have some overstrength and then take chip damage, that helps mitigate losing the ability to damage a unit. Um, okay, so this is fascinating. So if you get up here, your kill chance get as high as 81. So anyway, when you get a rugged defense against a 3 strength unit in a city, rugged defense means I think your initiative is set to 0, but the attack minus defense kicks in, and that's completely independent of all of these stats that you think are important. So it's going to, like, let's see, its attack is going to be 8, and your defense, since you're attacking into the city, it's close defense. So maybe your close defense is 2. So it's a difference of 6, right? Well, take a look at this. That means this 3 strength unit has a 63% chance of damaging you. Well, if you take 63% times 3, right? Uh that's like 1.5. Let's cut that to 1.5. Well, what's interesting about that is you can take 2 damage. And that's on dice chest. Like this is theoretically possible. Even if you take 58 times 3, it's like 1.5. But because the way combat results work is it rounds up. So those absurd situations where an infantry unit has, 1 entrenchment, they get rugged defense. The attack minus defense difference, especially since the rugged defense sets your initiative to 0, this is allowing them to fire. Maybe their initiative is 2, so they can fire 40% of their shots. So 40% of 3, uh, they point. That's about 1, right? So that means they get 1 shot off for sure, which has a 63% chance of damaging you. So 63% of 1 is 0.63, but that rounds up to 1. I'm hoping that this math is starting to make sense to people. That's why you take that chip damage. I think we saw with Night Phoenix, he was taking some serious chip damage at the end, getting very frustrated from the rugged defense chances. However, mathematically, it totally makes sense. Even a weakened unit is getting to fire off that shot, and if that difference, look at how little the difference has to be for the kill chance to be comically high. I mean, look at this. Let's say that the attack and defense values are the same. There's still a 40% chance to kill them. So if you have two shots, you're looking at zero point 0.8 and you round it up to one. Two shots is enough to do one damage. This would explain all kinds of things. This isn't even taking into account bonuses, which is we're going to get into later in this. This is the combat results for direct attacks, which is the vast majority of them. Then we get indirect attacks. Yeah. So, sorry. Why is this being complicated? I don't know why these are slightly different. Um, like, I don't know why direct attacks have this cap here and indirect attacks are like comically large. Um, so the highest kill chance that you can get with artillery and strategic bombers is 65%. So if you had a 15 strength uh like level bomber with 5 points of overstrength. Under what scenario though is attack minus defense? I mean, what is a level bomber's attack gonna cap out at? 25 or something? It's really difficult to imagine like why are the values this high? Right? Does somebody know more about the mechanics? Like this seems comically high. Oh, like these are very high values. Maybe this is why level bombers don't kill that much. I almost think that would fix level bombers, wouldn't it? Because if you just lower these to like 33 maybe, uh and like if these values shifted down 20, maybe you could do more damage and it wouldn't be crazy. It'd be like slightly more damage. Would that break level bombers though? Anybody modding out there, maybe you should be playtesting this because I think you can change these hard codes, or maybe you can't. So this is really cool. Uh, what was I going? Okay, thank you for publishing whoever this guy was. THVN. This guy is I'm glad this guy did this. Uh okay, so now that we know how kill probabilities are determined, it's just a function of A minus D. The next question is how many rolls do you get? Seems like there's a lot of variables left to account for. There's terrain, initiative, entrenchment, mass attack, weather, strength, ambush, rugged defense, rate of fire. Yes, he's correct about that. Assuming a rate of fire of 10, which the majority of all units have, you get one dice roll per 1 point of current unsuppressed strength of the unit. I think everybody knows that. A unit with strength of 7 gets 7 dice rolls. A unit with strength of 13 would get 13. Everybody knows that. If the unit in question has a different rate of fire, then the amount of dices is multiplied by the rate of fire divided by 10. And the outcome is always rounded down to an integer. This is extremely important. The rate of fire is rounded down. So a unit with a rate of fire of 7 with strength of 10 would get 7 dice rolls. The same unit with strength 13 would get 9. That's cool. Okay, let's discuss. So these guys, this is an amazing thread. I would like somebody that knows even more than me to really get into this. So let's discuss initiative. I read elsewhere that for each +1 of initiative, you get to do a 20% of your shots before the enemy returns fire. Is this rounded down as well? Also, what is the initiative roll off and how is that determined? So I think the rule is this is why the German units are so strong. If you hit +5 initiative, it means that 100% of your shots get to fire off, unless you hit a rugged defense. So 100% of your shots get to fire off, which is why if you overstrength entire your tanks that are experienced, they can seriously shut down a unit because as we'll get discussed later, there's a suppression associated with kills. Um, I did some testing to see how the 20% shot advantage is rounded, and everything I see points to a rounding off to the nearest integer. Values of 0.5 and higher are rounded up, lower is rounded down. This is so important. Why are initiative heroes so insane? because it's just it's effectively guaranteeing a rounding up in the initiative fight. Let like the plus one, maybe you go from 40% of your shots to just 60%. I think it's like a think about it. If you have an initiative plus one hero, whatever the normal combat results are, you tack on 20% of your units can fire without being silenced. This is why initiative heroes, maybe, I was thinking like you want initiative heroes because this unsuppressed fire shot rate is devastating. And this is why the German units are so good. This is why people like playing on the German side so much, because this initiative stat is so crazy. So this means the combat dice are rolled and effects are applied simultaneously. I saw one combat where the combatants were virtually wiped out each other due to this. That could be the case where maybe you have 0 is the net initiative, and then all of the units fire at each other unsuppressed. That's you could have units annihilate each other. I tested this by modding the percent advantage. I believe you can change this in the equipment file. Uh, Actually, while I have everyone's attention, maybe I should pull up this. I think this is in the equipment file somewhere. A little talk. They talk about this. That's heroes, paratrooper suppression, upgrade cost, overstrength cost, upgrade penalty, attack bonus, experience rules. Oh, by the way, there's a this is talked about. There's an initiative penalty when you run out of fuel. In case you're thinking it doesn't matter if you run out of fuel, you'd be totally wrong about that. This is the mass attack thing. The following parameter specifies how many shots a unit puts in before the opponent can shoot back. We could change this. So you could make this value lower or higher, which fascinating thing. This is a whole other difficulty setting. I'm going to toss this out there, get the wheels spinning. What happens to the game if you cut this in half? So you only have a 10% advantage. Or what happens to the game if you increase the shot advantage to 25? Because if you think about it, you don't have to have a +5 initiative advantage. You just need to have a +4 initiative advantage to have all of your units take a shot. There's a lot of stuff in this game rules file that's like I'm telling you, there's like a whole new Panzer Corps sitting there. Um, so anyway, we're he's only observed it indirectly, but I'm fairly sure that's how it works. At the start of the combat, the base initiative of the units has some factors added subtracted. This results in the effective initiative that determines which percentage of shots are taken first by whom. It is true that for each point of advantage, a unit gets to attack with 20% of its available shots before any retaliation can occur. So if a unit of 10 strength has a 2-point initiative advantage, it can make 40% of its attacks before the opponent can shoot back. Any kill suppression inflicted with those 4 shots can't retaliate anymore. So if you attack another 10 strength unit with a 2-point initiative advantage, those first 4 shots are free. And if those inflict 1 kill and 1 point of suppression, the opponent can retaliate with just 8 attacks. So this is super important. And I think he's going to go into you get bonuses for killing a unit, which can cause suppression. To be clear, the suppressed strength point will of course survive, but not participate in the combat anymore. Also, there is a mechanism that causes units to get additional suppression if they suffer kills. To quote Rudencourt, when a unit takes 1 kill, this also generates some suppression. The formula, I did not know this. I don't think Soren has ever talked about this. Soren, you should definitely be paying attention to this on your current insane playthrough. The formula is 50 minus the number of stars times 10 as a percent. So if you have 0 stars, that means that you would take 50% suppression from a kill, and I think that rounds up. So that means if you suffered a loss, then another unit is guaranteed to be suppressed. If you get up to 5 stars, This is crazy. I've never seen anyone talk about this, not even Deductor, who was a stats like he was all over the numbers. If you have a 5-star unit, it is impossible for a strength point to be lost and you suffer suppression. If it's a 4-star unit, you would take 10% chance of a suppressed unit, which would mean that the enemy would have to kill 5 strength points before you got suppressed. If you are ever wondering why experience is such a big deal, even 1 star, something I have been noticing playtesting, 1 star makes a big difference. So 1 star means there's a 40% chance if you lost a unit, you get a suppression. But the thing is, when you round that out, you get no suppression unless they kill 2 units. Then you would have 2 units killed, 1 suppressed. Okay, so 1 star is a really big deal. Uh, that means a greenie unit takes an additional zero point 0.5 of suppression per every kill. This models the fact that green units become disorganized and demoralized when taking damage. Veteran 5-star units take 0 additional suppression because they are so tough they are immune to this effect. All the rest of the units lie in between these two extremes. By the way, whoever thought of this mathematical mechanic is a genius. Uh, this explains so much that I think has been bothering elite players. I don't know how this thread got lost. I've never seen anyone talk about it. This is a really, really freaking big deal. We're aware of the effect of artillery, of course. I think artillery have other types of bonuses that makes them more effective at suppression. However, this is why taking out experienced units can sometimes be so difficult. You're not able to suppress them as easily. Fun fact. If no shots hit, the enemy can still use all of its attacks. So it's important to not just have better initiative, but to be able to inflict some damage with those free shots. Otherwise, the unit will have to withstand the full force of the enemy attacks. Right. This is why when you attack forts sometimes with tanks, things go horribly wrong because what if you miss a bunch of your shots? Then that means your effective initiative advantage didn't mean anything. You're just going to get the full force of the fort, which generally has high attack values. And if you think about some of these panzers that we play with, they have low defense values, so the kill chance is going to be very high. Okay, initiative modifiers. Every unit has an initiative stat, but there are some big modifiers that can really affect it. The experience bonus. We'll just focus on rule set 1.2 because almost nobody plays with 1.14. Newer rules have a 0.5 initiative bonus per star for infantry, tank, anti-tank, and fighter classes. And by the way, I think that rounds up. So you get it like right, you get zero point 0.5 and it rounds up. So if you go up a level or you get a star, you're gonna get +1 initiative. If you go up 2 stars, it's still +1. This is rounded to the nearest integer. So a 3-star fighter unit has, 1.5, which which equals 2 initiative. So one of the things I don't think people think about is actually the first star matters a little bit more than the second star, and then the third star is a major big deal. Deductor was talking about this in his videos. However, he never explained the technical mechanics of why, but I am pretty sure he knew this because he was constantly talking about how all of your units need to be 3 stars. So you get that extra initiative. And as I just explained earlier, the extra initiative is kind of insane. Okay. So it uses the lowest value. Where was I? The 1.4 rules have a fixed bonus for every class. Right, we'll ignore that. Mass attack bonus. For each additional friendly unit, you shrink the opponent's initiative by 1. Right. We already know that stuff about the Spitfire. So no fuel. This is something I didn't know. I have never seen anyone ever talk about. If a unit has 0 fuel, it gets a -2 initiative bonus. One of the things I was thinking about with the Deductor's mod, because he's penalizing elite units with low fuel, this is also penalizing potentially their initiative bonuses, which is a serious problem for elite German tanks. Initiative is kind of a big deal. It means that you should be more careful with how you use units. Okay, where was I? Hero bonus. If standard hero initiative hero gives +1, custom heroes can be different. Ambush rugged defense. If a unit is ambushed or has an unexpected encounter, its initiative is lowered to 0. Rugged defense chances are influenced by unit class, entrenchment experience. I do not know the calculations involved. Okay, I might be wrong about rugged defense. Maybe the initiative is 1. Uh, but we know that if you're ambushed or unexpected encounter, that's why you do so much damage to planes with unexpected encounters. With 0 initiative, all of your shots are firing off, basically. Because don't fighters have like 6 or 7 initiative, even the lower class ones? Okay, class specific initiative modifiers. We have the radar bonus. We know about that. That's a big deal, by the way. Now that I understand how initiative works, like that's a huge big deal. The anti-tank versus tank grade count. We knew about this, but holy crap. +3 initiative is insane. Don't attack an anti-tank with a tank or recon unless it is fully suppressed. Air versus ground. Ground units that have an air attack stat uh, or active always fires first at attacking aircraft. I find this confusing because haven't we seen aircraft attack? Oh, we have. That's right. They always attack first, but they don't always hit. In these combat, the ground unit's initiative is set to 99 and the air unit is set to 0. I think that's in the rule fire file. Um, where is that? Low altitude attack penalty is at -5. Yeah, that lowers the initiative. Isn't there a thing in here? I think there's something in here that has that. Okay. And then there's some capital ship stuff. This is interesting. If two capital ships have combat, their initial stat is ignored, and the attacker is set to 99. I'm a little confused about this. I don't understand why they did it that way. Submarine. If a submarine initiates a combat, its initiative is 100. That's fine. If a destroyer attacks a submarine, the sub's initiative will be 0. That's why the subs get taken out so quickly. That right there. Note that all these extreme values are still modified with experience bonuses, although obviously will not make a difference in the end for the air. But the 199 0 initiatives here are still overruled by weather caps. This is an important fact. In the case of air units versus uh, ground, this is not noticeable because there can't be any combat between those two due to the bad weather. Another thing about air versus ground in cloudy weather is that units involved only use half their strength. I think we knew that. If you didn't know that, you now know that. Air versus air combat is unaffected during cloudy weather, but becomes impossible during rain, snow, sandstorms. So I must have misunderstood because I always thought that there was an initiative cap in air-to-air combat in cloudy weather. But this guy is saying that there is no stat changes. Can people confirm that? I thought there was an initiative change, but okay. Terrain weather modifiers. The game library shows the initiative caps for different terrain types. For example, hills is 5. So effectively, in order for you to fire all of your shots in the hills, you have to get your opponent's initiative to 0. And the most easy way to do that is mass attack bonus. And that won't work on tanks that well. Okay. And combats are always fought in the hex of the defending unit. So this is very important rule for people to realize when you're taking damage. When you're fighting in close terrain, you're going to be using your close terrain defense stats, not your ground defense stats. Okay. Weather cap. During rain, snow, or sandstorms, initiative is capped to 1. Initiative cap for clear or cloudy weather is 99. These last two overrule everything, even heroes. So no matter how many bonuses you can apply, if you're fighting in a city or during bad weather, it will be reset to 1. Unfortunately, that's not all. There's the random modifiers. There's the dice roll. After all of the above modifiers have been applied, the game adds a random +0, +1, +2 to the result of each side. In my opinion, this random roll is the biggest contributor to the perceived inaccuracy of the combat predictor. If you are using a high initiative unit with +1 initiative hero to try to dislodge a surrounded enemy unit with no fuel in a city during bad weather, so no matter what the initiative Initial initiative will still be 1, but the game will sometimes, on top of that, roll a +0 for your side and a +2 for your enemy, which can drastically affect the outcome. So when Detector was talking about, like, I don't attack during rain turns, he had to have known this. It's why German units get totally mauled. Remember, the strength of the German unit is that massive initiative bonus. There's a reason we are seeing spectacularly bad rolls during snow and mud. In fact, it's kind of like the more you read this, the less inclined to attack in those conditions you should be. It's something Soren has pointed out in many of his videos. He will just literally sit there and just resupply everybody and do very limited combat. Deductor was the same way, actually. And it's why you can't really force your way through without taking damage. It doesn't matter how clever you are in or what kind of strategy you use, the weather plus the random modifier is just is destroying your ability to guarantee success. This person said, I must admit that I don't like initiative limits that overrule all hero and experience modifiers. I can't believe a 5-star unit or hero would lose all of its combat edge over a green unit just because it's snowing. Uh, I figured out the initiative advantage percent is probably rounded. Okay. And this person asks, is there any kind of initiative bonus for being the unit to initiate combat? Or do units do exactly the same on the attack as on the defense? There's some more stuff going. The initiative is not influenced by who initiates combat. The only exceptions are submarines, capital ships, ground-to-air combats, and the +3 initiative for an anti-tank unit when it's attacked by a tank or recon. Mass attack bonus also favors the attacker, but luckily surrounded units do not have their initiative lowered in their own turn when they attack. Okay, this is a fun fact. I think we all knew this instinctively. Uh, I kind of wonder if there's a way to change that. Guys, am I opening up Pandora's box here? What if you changed it so that attacking into a unit that's got support next to it lowered your initiative? I feel like that would radically change the game. Just tossing that out there. Okay, attack defense modifiers. Heroes, they normally come with +1 through +3 on attack or defense. There are some custom heroes that are differences. Bonuses can be stacked. Uh, don't forget these bonuses are applied to all of the unit's attack and defense stats, like close defense and air attack. Experience bonus. By the way, if you get one of the things I haven't thought about when you get an attack hero on something like a regular infantry, do you have air defense? I don't think you do. So I think you have to have air attack for the attack bonus to actually increase your air attack. Okay. Experience bonus. This is different between 1.14 and 1.2. Blah blah blah. In 1.2, there are different sets of modifiers for each class stat type. Table is below. First, I will quote the comments in the file to help explain the values. For each unit class, there are 8 columns specifying per star bonus to attack, defense, and initiative. Each value is a number of 1 over 100, so 100 means 1, 50 means zero point 0.5, and so on. As percent, okay. After applying the bonus, the game rounds the result to the nearest integer. So 3.2 attack is rounded to 3, and 3.7 is rounded to 4. Okay. So if we take a look at this, this is yeah, this is for every star, right? So infantry get half they get a 50 they get 0.5 of 1 initiative, but it's rounded up. So that's why you get +1 initiative the second you get that first star. It's why cavalry and deductors mod get so effective at 1 star, which has been my playtesting experience. They're pretty good. Okay. And I think the rest of this some of us know. So every star, the close defense, the air defense, and the ground defense goes up for infantry. And I don't think experienced infantry get air attack. So I think you have to start with air attack. This is a little confusing to me because once you get to 1 star, shouldn't there be air defense on infantry? There must be some sort of principle that's like if you don't have air defense capabilities, you can't get it as you get experience. Um, and then the tank is very similar. But what is the difference? Is close defense does not go up. Right, we knew that. And air defense doesn't go up as well as infantry. That makes sense. Recon. This is very interesting to me. I think we have discovered why recon are struggling later in the war. They don't get an initiative bonus. I don't know if I agree with that. Um, if somebody knows more about why it is like that, I would like to hear about this because I don't know. I think if you gave them the same initiative bonus as tanks and infantry, late war, the recon becomes more interesting and it might actually balance the unit out. Um, let's see. Ground defense. Okay, so notice the close defense doesn't go up. I think deductor's mod is a little bit different, but I'm not sure. And air defense is like tank. Okay. Then we have anti-tank. It gets the initiative bonus. Notice that the anti-tank doesn't see an increase in soft attack. That's why anti-tank struggle later in the war, killing infantry, because they're not getting any bonuses. Uh, I think Deductor's mod fixes some of that, because I think there's certain anti-tank that are a little bit better. Um, and this is fascinating. The anti-tank gets +2 attack for every star. So a 5-star anti-tank gets +10. That's pretty wild. And there's no bonus to close defense. Artillery. Notice that you get +1 on heart attack, and actually a 1-star artillery gets a bonus to heart attack immediately. That is cool. That's why 1-star artillery are so effective. And then anti-air, I don't mind the initiative so much, but the air attack goes up by 2. Yeah, this is why when the air units go from 0 to 1 stars, they suddenly are like actually damaging planes. Fighter gets the initiative bonus. Notice that I didn't know this. The fighter gets +2 attack to air. That's why 3-star fighters are kind of crazy. Tactical bomber, nothing really special. And then strat bomber, soft attack, hard attack, naval attack. Yeah, it's pretty standard. It also explains why late war their air attack doesn't go up, so they struggle against stuff as the planes get better. For all the transports, I put all types in a single line. Blah blah blah. Here we go. An entrenchment. Each level entrenchment adds to the defense, but this is calculated differently against different types of attack. When attacked by most unit type, each point of entrenchment gives +1 defense. So if you think about it, this would shrink the gap between attack and defense. And then that would shrink the probability that you damage the unit. It would explain why it is so freaking difficult to kill entrenched units. Uh, each point of entrenchment gives a +1 defense against attack, a 100% defense bonus. If attacked by a ranged attack, each point counts double. If you're ever wondering why artillery simply can't kill those entrenched units, whatever the attack value of that artillery is, you can now, on top of that, whatever that, let's fix it at 10. If you've got like 8 entrenchment, there's like +16 defense, right? We're actually getting into the negatives there, and it explains why it is so incredibly difficult to kill these entrenched units. So unit with level 3 entrenchment would get a +6 defense against ranged attacks. This last bonus does not apply when playing with 1.14 rules. By the way, if you're playing with dice chests, it's very useful to know this stuff. When attacked by infantry, the bonus is only 50%. So a unit with 2 entrenchment would only get +1 extra defense. So if you get up to 8, it's only +4. This is why infantry are so good at attacking entrenched units. This number it seems to always be rounded down to the closest integer. For example, 5 entrenchment when attacked by infantry counts as 2. That's a useful fact to know. Note that higher experience in entrenchment also contributes indirectly to better combat results, because they both increase the chance of a rugged defense. Experience of the attacking unit also matters, as that seems to decrease the chance. Combat engineers ignore the defense, blah blah blah. Two other special units have this trait, the Panzer and the Churchill Crocodile. There's miscellaneous bonuses. During ambush, rugged defense, unexpected encounters, the unit that does the ambushing gets +4 defense, and the ambush unit gets initiative of 0. This is why tanks and anti-tanks are so good at ambushes, because that initiative is good enough. You just need to have 5 initiative if you think about it. I mean, even like what's the worst anti-tank that's mobile? It probably has 5 initiative. So if you ambush with it, it's going to be devastating. And also, +4 defense will shrink that gap between attack and defense. Yeah. If a unit is on a river and engages in combat, their opponent receives a +4 bonus to attack and defense. I thought you only got a bonus to attack. Oh, bridge engineers do not suffer this penalty. That's correct. So, man, this is why attacking units on rivers is so effective. That's insane. Infantry versus anti-tank. If infantry attacks anti-tank unit, the infantry gets a +2 attack. That makes sense. This is why infantry are so good at cleaning them up. Anti-tank versus infantry. If an anti-tank unit attacks infantry, the infantry gets a +2 bonus. This explains, keep in mind, as the anti-tank get experience, they get no soft attack bonus. And infantry are getting defense stat bonus, so the gap between attack and defense shrinks, and it decreases the probability of a kill quickly. This is why anti-tank, like an elephant, will crash and burn against infantry so often. Ground versus naval. If a ground unit attacks the ship gets a +8 defense. Low altitude attack. If a fighter or tactical bomber attacks a ground target, its ground defense is lowered by 5 points during the combat. So if you have air defense on the unit, the gap between attack and defense is lowered. This is why so often you take chip damage when you're attacking something like engineers or grenadiers. Where were we? During snow, rain, sandstorm, units receive +3 ground defense bonus when attacked by artillery. That explains why it's so hard to kill things, or why we take so little damage in those uh, situations. That's very useful. Units in close terrain receive a +4 air defense bonus when attacked by air units. This is why it is so freaking difficult to damage a unit in a city. Fort Killer. Units that have this trait get +5 attack when attacking structures. We knew about that. Minefields are a bit tricky. Normal units will only inflict a single kill with each combat on a minefield. Artillery infantry do normal damage. And combat engineers can clear them. Yep. There's also an optional range penalty for all ranged units. This can only be modded into the game and subtracts a fixed penalty per hex. Does anyone know about this? Where's the range penalty? Because I feel like that could change the game as well. I'm looking. Oh. I don't see a range penalty. So I'm curious what that is. Did that get removed? Um, it can only be modded into the game and subtracts a fixed penalty per X. I'm curious what that is. Strategic bombing causes suppression, blah blah blah. We know about that. So what about when you attack from a river? Does the unit you attack get the same bonus? Yes, it does. Sorry for the confusion. A unit that attacks another unit that is on a river hex gets this bonus. And in your example, if a unit attacks from a river hex, the opponent gets the bonus as well, no matter on what kind of hex it sits. Fun fact, if two units are both on a river hex and engage in combat, both sides get the bonus. So this explains why in all of the examples I see in river on river action, it's pretty bloody. It's because well, actually, maybe it's not pretty bloody because everybody's getting the same bonus. But if you attack a unit on a river, uh, they get penalized and you get the bonus. Or no, you get the bonus, and that's bad. Uh, yes. So that's that section. What was I going to talk about here? Attack and defense. Uh, oh, by the way, look at this particular example. You see how the gap is this so this gap is 4, right? So if we go back, where was it? The gap was 4. It's a 58% kill chance. And you'll notice here the effective attack, effective defense is 58%. Um, what's interesting is here the effective attack is 7, effective defense is 11. So the difference is -4. So if you take a look at -4, notice that it's a 22% kill chance. That is how this is all fixed. This is something I could imagine like Soren memorizing. I don't know if you need to memorize it. If you memorize it, you wouldn't have to look at the combat results. uh so that's cool to see that verified. Uh why did I have this? Okay, never mind. I just wanted to show the screenshot, I think, to show you the kill chance. So, uh I will leave it there. I thought this thread was super fascinating. And now I think I understand combat at a very high level. And dice chess can be fun. As I said, in the little spare time I have, I've been playtesting this difficulty setting, and it's significantly more fun than Napoleon. I will put that out there. Significantly more fun, but also I haven't run into the Soviets yet, so maybe the fun ends very quickly. But you have a lot more control, but at the same time, it you're going to be spending a lot of prestige. So the rules are kind of brutal. Like I think this is one of these things where this actually gets harder uh, at a faster rate than Napoleon. Napoleon is just brutally hard all the way from beginning to end. So let me know what you think, and